This video is going to be probably about 10 minutes long. It should be focused almost exclusively on VMware, our integration with VMware, and then backing up and restoring data from VMs as well as the entire virtual machine. So let's just jump right into it. I'm hoping that my slide is showing on screen here. Just really the top two bullets, and then we'll jump right into the UI. We have a fantastic integration with VMware. We're calling on VMware's own APIs for data protection, and that's how we talk to the hosts out there in the environment. So it's going to be an agentless backup. I'll probably repeat this in a few minutes, but we don't have to install our client onto the individual VMs. So an agentless approach and a very nice integration with VMware using their APIs. And with that, let me just cut away from the slide deck here and bring up the appliance UI. Okay, so we're not going to go into any of the other fields or tabs, other than just obviously it's all browser-based content. We jump right into my client's summary view, which is the list of all of the servers in my environment. Of course, I have a mix of physical servers as well as virtual servers. So I get these virtual machines into the list by adding a connection to either one or more standalone VMware hosts, like ESXi hosts, or to something like a vCenter server. So in this case, I click the button to add a connection, and I get this little login kind of a dialog. And again, it's just enter in the address and the credentials to connect to those hosts. And once I've made that connection, those hosts show up in my list, as well as all of the virtual machines that they are managing. So it's a very, very quick and very simple approach. Any virtual machine here, the first column is simply the status of that VM, which is equal to the status that you would see if you were looking at your vSphere client, for example. So a couple of these VMs are off, a couple of them are running, and that's what the status indicates. Name is obviously straightforward, host and so forth, size, and so on. We get a virtual machine included in the backup by adding it to my client's summary list. I do that by registering that VM. So I'll just step through a quick example here. Let's say I want to back up this OES2 client. I simply hit register. Yep, this is the one I want. I hit yes. The process goes through, should take just a second or two, and then I'll have a registered VM. So I see a successful result. Now if I go back to my summary tab, and I realize, well, we're going to do a lot of bouncing back and forth for this, but now that virtual machine appears in the list, and I can now run a backup on that. Quick side note, the way that our backups work, we are running VMware level snapshots, where we're telling those hosts to run those snapshots, but we're storing all of that content on our appliance or in our storage space rather than the virtual machine or the VMware's data stores. So we're going to consume our space and not the end users. If I wanted to unregister that VM, I don't want, let's say I know it's going to go away, I don't want to do any more backups on it, I can just simply take it out of the list. Again, it shows up in there. You have the option to delete any backup jobs or just allow them to be orphaned. And then there might be other tools that would go out and clean out orphaned jobs at a later date. But you get the option there. So I hit yes. Again, takes just a second. And then it says, okay, that client is now deleted. It is now unregistered. If I toggle back once more, that OES client is now no longer in the list. I want to give a couple of examples on restoring content from within a virtual machine backup. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I right-click anywhere on the row here for this client. First, I'm going to choose this Browse and Restore option. So the wizard, kind of a guided process, it all pops up. And let's say I want to roll this VM back to the middle of June, a couple weeks ago. I can just simply select the date I want. I hit Next. Now I have a few options. If I want to pull out specific components of that VM, such as the OVF file or the actual VMDK file, I can do that. We can select that option and get that level of restore going on. Or the default button here is I can drill into that VM or into that VMDK and restore folders and files, kind of a granular approach to getting content from within that virtual machine. Quite honestly, that is the most common scenario. A user loses a file, right? So we need to be able to drill in and get that content back. I can also, if this is something like a SQL server, or in my case this is an Exchange server, I have some application data. So we're kind of quiescing those specific applications. We can grab those databases and restore them. For our demo here, I'm going to choose the Contain Files option. I get to choose, do I want that to keep the whole folder hierarchy, or do I want to cut all of that out and just get right to the exact content that I'm after? I'm just going to take that second option there. We hit Next, and I get a little summary of what I'm about to do. I hit Finish, and we do a quick little bit of prep work there to let me browse into this VMDK image. And now I can drill down through the folder structure. And you'll notice as it's displaying, there is no C drive. Even though we're looking at Windows folders and files within here, you have to keep in mind we're looking at this from VMware's perspective. So it doesn't recognize a C drive. It just has this kind of this root partition where the VM lives, and then the individual partitions that would make up the Windows directories. Anyhow, the content is all the same, and more or less what anyone would expect. In fact, I can drill right in here and select. Let's say I needed to restore, just for example's sake, my Internet Explorer folder. I can simply check the box here on the left. It's grabbing all of the content here on the right, and I can run my restore. You'll notice the restore button is grayed out. I do have one requirement because we are an agentless backup. We don't natively have permissions to write data to those VMs. So I have this one step, which is to issue some login credentials for the Windows virtual machine. So this is giving me access to that local box by issuing valid login credentials. Once I've done that, I make that connection, I get that authorization, and then the restore button goes live, and I can run that restore. One or two other notes in here. You don't have to grab an entire folder. You can kind of mix and match subfolders and files, etc. Also, you'll notice that file names are listed in blue. I can literally click on a file, and it will download. So that's a link for me to do a direct download of the file off of my appliance right onto my desktop, or whatever workstation I'm sitting at or I'm remoted to. So it's kind of a nice little shortcut there, particularly if you're after, let's say, a user is standing next to you and says, hey, I've lost this particular Word document. You say, hey, no problem, drill down, find that document, click on it, and it'll just download, and you can open it up right then and there. So it's extremely useful and something unique to the Eversync product. Okay, with that, let me kind of close out of that sort of way of thinking of doing that granular restore approach. And let me, I'll just stick with the same client again here, but let me give a different type of restore. This time, not granular, I'm not looking for files, but let's say I just need to bring back the entire virtual machine. In this case, I will choose the restore option. Again, kind of similar starting point. I get to select the point in time. And let's say something that was corrupted, and I want to roll this back quite a ways. Let's go to the end of May. So I select what I want. I hit Next. Now I have some different options from what we were looking at earlier. I don't have the ability to drill in at this point because we're talking about restoring the entire virtual machine. I can basically I have two choices. I can overwrite the existing virtual machine, or I can create something new. So obviously different scenarios. Maybe if something was corrupt and you want to roll back to an earlier image, that would be the first option. But also if maybe the whole building burned down, right, and you lost your entire environment. So you've spun up a replacement host, and now you need to restore these VMs, but they don't exist, so you're creating new virtual machines. Let's step through this example. If I had multiple hosts, I would be able to select which host I want to restore this VM to. Then within that host, you're going to have multiple data stores, or typically there are multiple data stores. You can select the appropriate one. If there were alternate resource pools, you could choose those. Then I hit next. So that was the first page was talking about where I want to create that virtual machine. This page is where do I want those virtual machine disks to be restored to. Quite often that's going to be the same place. You might just simply take the existing or the default setting. But if you needed to, you can just simply click on the store and you get the list of, hey, maybe there's a little bit more space here, so maybe I want to try to balance this out a little bit. You can choose that, or you can just restore it the way you normally would and let VMware worry about migrating things around. Anyway, I select what I want, I hit next. I now get the option of renaming that VM. Well, if my building is burned down and I've lost everything, then I can keep the original name, right? I can just say, hey, I just need to recreate this. But if I just want to spin up another instance of this, maybe I come up with another name. We will automatically append the underscore restored that you see there. But if you wanted to add anything else, you can rename whatever you like. So again, I hit next. And this is going to be the last option. You see the finish button here at the bottom. But my last two options are, do I want to have the virtual machine powered on or powered off? And do I want the virtual machine connected to the network or not? There could be reasons for either one of those. Perhaps you're restoring a duplicate VM. You don't want it to show up in the network with the same IP address or with the same name or something. So maybe you select no so that you can make some adjustments before powering on the virtual machine. Just as one or two little examples there. So once I'm done, I hit finish, and I'm not actually going to do that, but if I were to hit that finish, you could be monitoring things through your vSphere control panel, and you would see, hey, a new VM is being launched, and data is being recorded, and there's a little bit of, right here on the VMware tab, there would be some job progress and some information about what's going on with those backups. I'll pause for just a second and let me think if I've skipped everything or anything. I think we've got that. So we've talked about adding VMs to get them backed up by simply making the connection. They're going to follow whatever schedule we define. I guess I sort of skipped over that. You can create any schedule you want. VMs can run at any time. And actually, I'm glad I took a moment to think. Let me edit one of these virtual machines and just highlight one other key feature that we take full advantage of, the change block tracking. This is an integrated part of the V80P tools, and essentially this allows for a synthetic full backup. You might also think of that as an incremental forever type of backup. Basically, the host is intelligent, and it tracks for us the blocks of new or unique or modified data within each VMDK, so that when we come along to do the backup, it says, oh, hey, I remember you. Since the last time you were here, here's all of the new stuff. And that's all we have to back up, is just that unique new content. So that makes for very short, very streamlined backups. It's fantastic technology. The other options, just while we're looking at this, ignore unallocated sectors. Basically, empty space can be skipped, or the quiesce data option is essentially capturing those application databases and et cetera in a good and consistent state so that they can be restored. The one last note I might highlight is the recycling. You'll notice there is no recycling option for differential and incremental backups. That's because if we tell it to, or if we schedule an incremental backup, it's really that synthetic full approach because of the change block tracking technology. So, well, even though we might be doing these tiny little incremental types of backups, the images of each VM it's a full image at any point in time. So we only have the concept of a full job retention. So in this case, if I do a full backup today, 3 months from today, that job would be considered expired and could be purged off of the appliance. Okay, I think that was a little bit more than I intended to go into, and probably ran over the 10 minutes marker that I expected, that I mentioned earlier on. But let's go ahead and end it right there. That's going to be hopefully a great introduction to the Eversync appliance and specifically how we handle virtual machine backups. Thanks.